Today I'm putting out my first transplants. I'll be putting out some Canadian crookneck squash. I've started other squash down on the far end of the 2 acres so I don't get cross-pollination. I hope that's not a problem. Fingers crossed. I want to save seeds from these ones specifically. These were given to me by Chris and Stephanie at Hickory Croft Farms. Go check out their channel. They have rabbits and sheep and gardens and interesting ideas. Here in Eastern Ontario, 4B, we've had frost warnings and actual frost right up until just last week. The foreseeable forecast looks like it's always above +10 at night, so I think we can go and get started on this. I haven't been out doing as much in this garden as I could be. I have another garden that we just started this year. I'm putting in my first transplants and I'm putting in some Brussels sprouts. I'm keeping this garden for things I don't want to cross-pollinate with others. So my Brussels sprouts and cabbage are going to be scattered all over the place to distract the bugs and hopefully not get a bad infestation of bugs. I can use row covers as well. We do get cabbage moth here that leave their little green worms on the brassicas. I have not been in here to weed this garden yet, and we have a problem with couch grass, cooch grass, witch grass, twitch grass, whatever you want to call it. It spreads by runners under the ground, and it's a bit of a challenge. There's lots of vetch too. Last year we had cabbages and Brussels sprouts over on that side, so they're fine to put here this year, and squash can definitely go here this year. I do rotate where I plant things so that any bugs that were laid in the ground, any eggs that were laid in the ground that might be attracted to those plants are not near the same plants. Any diseases that may have been carried over, and the nutrients that a specific plant uses will not be depleted from the soil as I move things around. I am going to be putting a couple of scoops of composted manure in the holes as I'm planting, or around the top as I'm planting, and I'll water these in. I'm not watering the whole area because I don't have a huge garden up here yet. I've just got a dozen plants or so to go in today. This morning. I'll put more in later this afternoon, probably in the other garden. I am ready to get these plants out of my house. I want my room back. Last year was the first year we put a garden in here. We just moved in the previous winter, so this will be our second season growing on this. I have a lot of weeds that came out of the bale of straw that I put on top of these gardens. I've never used straw before, and I didn't know to not pick up just a bale of rough, random straw, and now I'm paying the consequences. There's a lot of weeding to do this year, but I'm hoping that we get the crops that we got last year. My plant starts are pretty weak. They're ready to get into a larger pot, and this one needs to be watered. But they started to go to blossom. Can you see that? They started to go to flower, which means the plant thinks its life cycle is nearly done. So I'm going to pull all those flower blossoms off. We don't want it to set fruit right now. We want it to set root right now. So I'll pull off any damaged leaves, and I'll pull off the blossoms. They'll compost. There's no rhyme or reason really to how I'm doing this. I'm just spacing them far enough apart that they can thrive. Again, I'm taking off the damaged leaves. This does have root hairs starting on the stem, and it's vining, so it will reach out. I caught myself a few times not practicing good ergonomics and twisting farther than I should have, and my body is letting me know. This is half of what I'm doing right this minute. I'm going to do the Brussels sprouts next. I have one, that last plant I put in there, that is a single red cabbage. I planted 24 red cabbage, one germinated. I have planted my tomatoes 4 times over. Nothing is germinating. I did have some seeds that may have gotten frozen, but I had some seeds that were brand new, and I'm still struggling with getting things to germinate. Down in the lower acre where I've got the new seeds in, I'm still waiting 2 weeks later for certain things to come up. The beans haven't started to sprout at all, and I've got in 6 rows that are however 25 feet long or whatever. Nothing's coming up. My potatoes finally started to show yesterday. Some of my squash started to show just their first 2 little cotyledon leaves a few days ago. The corn that we've planted isn't showing anything. I hope that we can get this garden to take off soon because we're tired of the frailty of it. Okay, I've had enough of a break. Let's get back to the next part. Ideally, it would have been better to put these in later in the day so that they don't get the heat of the day on them and some transplant shock, but I have to take the time and the energy when I have it. That's part of having the medical conditions that I have. I also tried to set these plants in so there was a strong one and a weak one and a strong one and a weak one. So if I lose something, it's in between and the stronger plants aren't competing with each other. Let's go over to the next row and plant the Brussels sprouts. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up or not. Here is the cardboard that I buried. It didn't get completely buried, but that's cardboard, manure and compost about 6 inches thick, and then wood chips in the paths and straw on some of the beds, which I regret. But the rest of it's been working all right. I have these weeds to pull. Again, I didn't prep for this because I've had other things going on. I'll prep as I go along, and I'll be able to catch up with the weeds in the next week or so. In this one, the root has gone over to the cell next to it, but there is no plant in that second cell. I'm going to plant them together so I don't disturb the roots any further. Towards the end of the season last year, I learned some things about Brussels sprouts, and hopefully this year will be more productive for us. Our Brussels sprouts didn't produce as much as we would have liked, but let me tell you, you pull the bottom leaves off and give them to the chickens go crazy. They love the leaves of the Brussels sprouts. The native soil in this area is quite sandy, so drainage is not a problem. See, I'm reaching too far. Here's an example of the poor germination. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the roots that ran over from that other one into another cell. So that's 5 that didn't germinate. This one is so much smaller than all the other ones because it germinated late. It barely has true leaves on it. 6 out of 12. 50% germination rate isn't very satisfying. I've heard others have been having trouble with their germination this year too, so it's not just me, but I don't know why. So I'm going to find somewhere to plant this other little baby. We love Brussels sprouts, so I might as well plant it. I've been pulling these weeds out in a pinch and grip in my fingers, and I know that later on my hands are going to be sore. So I know also I should be using the claw to get these things loose before I grab them. But you know, we go for convenience rather than wisdom sometimes. I think I'll be giving some of these weeds to the chickens to eat. They love to eat all the worms and the ants out of the bottom. Let's give the chickens a treat. Apparently, they think I'm coming to them with something. They'll be entertained for a little while. So that's it for today. I might get out there more this evening and put another dozen or 2 dozen plants in. I'm starting to overheat and I have to mind those ergonomics, and this is part of it for me. I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks. Bye.